Thank you, Mike. Great to be here. I am the Chief Customer Officer at Telenav. We're one of the leading software suppliers in the connected car space. Currently, we offer connected navigation for General Motors and Ford globally, and Toyota in North America, as well as several other automotive OEMs. So I've been involved in this navigation space, the connected car space, now for more than 14 years at Telenav. And certainly as the cars have become connected and as we move towards self-driving, we've been looking at not just having navigation for the human driver, but how do we make navigation available for the autonomous vehicles?
Okay, perfect. So yeah, everybody's autonomous is like the dream at this point in time anyway. And I know there's different levels. We want to focus on level 5. So can you define what level 5 autonomous driving is?
Yeah, so I think level 5 has a slightly different meaning to everybody. For me, level 5 autonomous driving means I can get in my car, I can take a nap, and I wake up and I'm at my destination. Whether it's 10 miles away or whether it's a 400-mile trip, I go to sleep in DC and I wake up in New York, or vice versa, and it'll navigate on highways, on small roads, even on areas under construction, inclement weather, all of those things. That is level 5.
Okay, yeah, I mean that sounds wonderful. I can't wait to see it. And you and I are both, we've been around for a while. I think we were both born in were you born? I can't. 1970s when I was born. I'm already 50. I think you're almost 50.
Almost. I was born in 71. Right. So yes.
So I've reached the age of wisdom, right? You're almost there. Although you're probably wiser than I am in this category, I would say. So we've seen it all. I couldn't even imagine this stuff when I was young, but it's here and people are talking about it. One of the things you hear all the time, because I own a Tesla, is Elon Musk talking about this. So what kind of a time frame are we looking at? And are his timelines at all accurate?
Well, so I think Tesla is a fantastic car, and Elon is certainly one of the visionaries in our space. But I think there is also a concern that sometimes you get too over-aggressive. My biggest issue with Tesla is the fact that they call their semi-autonomous driving autopilot, which makes people think it's like an airplane that flies and you put it on autopilot and it can fly by itself.
Correct.
While the technology isn't there. And I think the timelines that Elon has provided around Tesla, I believe it was supposed to be level 5 autonomous last August. So it hasn't happened.
Yeah, I think you pushed it off to the end of this year, but still, even the end of this year seems like it's too soon.
Yeah. So sometimes it all depends on your definition of level 5. So my definition of level 5 that I just gave, definitely not happening this year, and I'm not sure if it happens in our lifetime, where you could truly have an autonomous car that could navigate anywhere freely, regardless of road conditions. The type of environment, whether it's urban or highway, can handle everything.
Okay, so what has to happen? What needs to be developed? What technology needs to be out there to make this work and work correctly?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people focus on what has to go into the vehicle itself. And I think the in-car technology is improving very rapidly. And you can have smart vehicles that can look around, make a lot of decisions. But a lot of autonomous driving now, it is still relying on things like road markers. The cars cannot pick up where traffic lights are. As human beings, we can perceive whether the light is red, green, yellow, even if it's a bright day. But most autonomous cars are looking for certain visual cues. And if they're not there, even though they may have the best cameras, the best LiDAR, it cannot make those intelligent decisions. So we need to focus not only on the vehicle itself, we also have to look at what has to go in the infrastructure side. So on the infrastructure side, it needs to go into the smart cities concept, where the city or the roads have to be able to communicate with the vehicle. So if you're in an urban environment or a suburban environment, and there's a traffic light up ahead, it should tell the vehicle as it's approaching it, look, light is red.
Right.
So it can start to slow down and it knows the exact location. That's why, even if you have a car that's perfect, it's I very much see it feasible to have level 5 type of autonomous driving in very limited areas where you do have the infrastructure in place to support it. And this is one of the reasons why, GM Super Cruise, which is a competitor of Tesla, it's been set up so it only can be operated on highways where they have a high definition map available. So I think
How does it know? I mean, is it just GPS based? How does it know where those boundaries are?
yes, it is GPS based. So based on where you are, it only lets you turn on Super Cruise once you're in an area where they have a high definition map. So with the high definition map, uh, even if it's raining out and you can't quite see the road markings, it tends to be accurate to within a couple of centimeters. So it can still keep the car in your lane. But the issue there is that high definition map is not in real time. So if there is construction, if roads have changed, so this is where the infrastructure part comes in.
What about like if there's an accident in front of you and there's stopped vehicles?
Yeah, so there you typically have sensors in the vehicle now. I think automated braking has been around for a very long time, right? And it can use radar for automated braking. So things like that can be dealt with. But if you're dealing with, again, bad weather, missing road markings, especially construction, sometimes you have construction and they may go from a 4-lane road to a 3-lane road, and they have to put in now new markings. So it's very easy for camera-based sensors to get confused and figure out, well, should I be between these two markers or the others, because they might be running right next to each other.
Okay, this has got me thinking. Are there two different camps here? Are there two different thought patterns here? I mean, because you're talking about an integrated system with the infrastructure, and I know from what I understand of Tesla and Elon Musk, they're talking about just a simple visual system where it's like a human with eyes in the back of their head, and they're just processing as they go. Are these two different schools of thought?
Well, not necessarily, because I think even with what Tesla is doing, the infrastructure only improves it. It just makes it so much better. Right. So there is so much you can do. I think for highway-based driving, what Tesla has now or what GM has now is very good. Still has room for improvement, but for highway-based driving where you do not have intersections, you don't have traffic lights, and for the most part, the roads are marked well, right? These camera-based systems, I think, work quite well. The issue always happens, when you get off the highway.
Right. Because it is. I agree. It's so much easier on the highway. There are just that many fewer possibilities that can happen. And I'm not familiar with the GM system. Is the GM system what does the sensor suite look like in the GM? I'm familiar with the sensor suite on the Tesla, just not the GM.
Yeah. So I'm not an expert on the sensor suite at GM. I do know that I think things that share publicly that they are using high definition maps. That might be one difference. It is also camera based, but it is so it's not only relying on the camera, but it is relying on the high definition maps for accuracy as well to keep the vehicle on track.
Okay, I see. Here's another question that's been brought up over time. The issue of LiDAR. What do you see happening with LiDAR? Is it required? Is it not required? What's going on?
Yeah, so I think you've seen with some of the the crashes that the autonomous Teslas have been involved with, that so far camera-based systems alone cannot look at every single possibility, especially under extreme conditions. That's where I think LiDAR will be helpful. I think LiDAR, the price of the overall hardware is coming down. And I do believe it is going to play a major role in the future of autonomous driving.
Okay, because I remember watching the Elon Musk presentation about a year ago for Autonomous Day, and someone asked him a question about LiDAR, and I think his response was that it's a fool's errand. That was his response, and that kind of floored me. I'd never heard anyone say that. I think up to that point, I think everyone was thinking, well, Tesla's just got it all wrong. And then when he answered that question, he kind of flipped it around and said, no, you guys have it all wrong. So what do you make of all this? I mean, can everyone have a place in here? Can there be multiple different systems, or is one going to have to win over the other?
Yeah, so I'm not the hardware expert. I do believe there will be different approaches. We've already seen GM and Tesla take different approaches. There will be a LiDAR-based approach to non-LiDAR-based, and they'll all have their limitations. And ultimately, on very high-end premium vehicles where there are higher margins, you'll have the ability to have the best of all worlds. On more of the middle tier vehicles, it's probably not affordable to put everything in.
Do you think initially or long term, will there always be different levels depending upon your budget?
I think, so if you look at it, right, everything goes through a product cycle. There used to be a time where anti-lock brakes were an option.
Right. Yeah,
I can't remember
they weren't
someone
even available.
yes, going to a car now. So I think the same way with autonomous driving or semi-autonomous driving, there will be certain features that will become just standard. I think you have cruise control that's been around for a long time, and then you have adaptive cruise control, which maintains distance with the vehicle in front of you, so you don't need to constantly speed up, brake. I think to have the next iteration, of cruise control, as GM called it, super cruise, right? So things like that, I believe, will become standard. Where on highways, more and more people will be able to have truly hands-free systems. I think right now you have hands-free systems, but it still requires eyes on the road. So the one thing which the GM system does is it does track your eye movement. And if it notices that you're not paying attention, it will try to get you to pay attention.
Yeah, that you've mentioned that to me before, and I'm not familiar with that, but that sounds like it makes sense, because I will tell you from my own experience with the Tesla system, I can turn that on any road at any speed. Now, it used to be that they limited me. I had to be going at least 18 miles an hour until recent software upgrades, but now I can go down to 1 mile an hour. Yes. And I can do it anywhere, which surprises me, because that's why I asked you about the GPS location with the GM system, because it would seem to me that they would know where I am and they would know whether it's safe or not, but they still allow me to turn the system on, and I can tell you there's been all kinds of weird stuff that have happened on certain roads, but I've been there to control the car. And ultimately, I think the way that they have it set up, it's still the responsibility of the driver, because level 5 would be no driver responsibility, right? Is that another thing that level 5 would be?
Absolutely. So level 5 doesn't need a steering wheel, right? There's no steering wheel needed. It's a car that completely drives by itself. And again, I think Tesla has been really a technology leader in this space. One of the areas where Tesla has really excelled in has been over-the-air software updates. They believe they're doing this better than any other OEM. And the ability
you see that going forward, that's something that will be happening in most cars going forward.
Absolutely. I think every OEM realizes, not just for autonomous driving, but in general, if automotive OEMs want to compete with consumer electronics, people change their phone on average every 2 years. A car's lifetime is 10 years. So they have to not only have over-the-air software updates, but they need to start planning for hardware in general, where it has a longer lifespan than your phone does.
Okay, yeah, a couple quick questions are revolving that. You mentioned to me, first of all, certifying vehicles. Say, like for a level 5, your vehicle would have to be certified to be on the road, which makes sense to me. I never heard that before. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So right now it is, as you mentioned, it is the driver's responsibility to have the vehicle in good shape. If your taillight is busted and a police officer pulls you over, it's your responsibility, right? And you will get the ticket.
Right.
If your brakes don't work, maybe you could blame the manufacturer, but you're the one that tests it. All these shops, they're certified. So first it is, with autonomous driving, it's going to be, if there is a car that has to go through maintenance, who will certify that now it's good enough to get back in service? We will have to retrain our entire maintenance industry.
Right.
They will need to get certified that, look, yes, I certify, this car's brakes were changed and it meets all the specifications for level 5. But not just the certification for service, the insurance companies have to get involved. So they will have to, so the infrastructure goes, beyond just what a city does, but it is the whole infrastructure around maintenance, around insurance, around making sure that if, while it might be very remote, people always talk about if 2 autonomous cars get into a car accident, who determines fault, right?
Yeah, right.
But I would say even if one autonomous car hits a manual driving car, somebody has to determine fault. And then after servicing, somebody has to make sure that it is certified to get back in. And the whole insurance company in US is regulated on a state-by-state basis.
Right.
So every state will have to come up with its own rules. Perhaps it goes national, and then the insurance companies have to look at the risk that it poses. So while I feel the autonomous technology can bring in a lot of safety and improve driving conditions, if it's used in a reckless manner, it could have the opposite effect. So it might be that nobody ever wants to go into autonomous mode because their insurance rates go up.
Wow. Okay. I hadn't thought about that because I keep hearing that the insurance rates would be less, but yeah, if it's done wrong, then it'd be a disaster for sure.
Yes.
How about the concept of appreciating assets? Would a fully autonomous vehicle actually go up in value or not be a depreciating asset anyway? What are your views on that?
Well, I think that's whether the value goes up. It depends on the machine learning algorithms, right? So you will have some local machine learning, but a lot of it is going to be on the cloud side. So I think an important asset for companies like Tesla is the fact that they have a lot of data back from their vehicles, but it's all in the cloud. So over time, the vehicles will get smarter, not just from what is built in from the factory, but from what they observe. But most of that should be shared back with the cloud so that the auto manufacturer can use that across all of their fleet. So I don't know if the asset will appreciate necessarily, but I think it can be much more efficiently used. For me right now, my car sits in my garage,
Right.
probably 22 hours to 23 hours per day because I work from home. So it'll be great from efficiency improvement even if I don't want it to be out all the time, at night, it could be a self-driving Uber, a ride-hailing vehicle, or some other ride-sharing.
One of the things I thought was intriguing is that, let's say you want to go downtown for a night on the weekend. The way it is in today's world, you either have to get on public transportation, arrange all that, or you have to get an Uber, or you have to try to go downtown and find a parking spot. Where in a level 5 world, I'm thinking, well, I can just drive myself downtown, or the car will drive me, drop me off, and then go earn money for me in the urban downtown area while I'm out on the town, and then pick me up when I'm done. So you'd actually gain money in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, the next time you go watch a movie, you go to a baseball game where for 3 hours you're in downtown DC and you don't need your vehicle, but there is a high demand for ride hailing. It could certainly do that. Or, I mean, even, there are other simpler use cases. One of the big reasons that I don't rent cars when I fly is once you land at an airport, you have to now go and pick up your car. You may have to take a train there, a bus, and then coming back, it's the same process. It adds time. Right. So when you're, traveling, you have a car that just, that is your rental car. Even if it's not fully autonomous, it can just come and pick you up from the terminal. And it's very easy for them to have that 1 or 2 miles mapped, with the infrastructure in place. And afterwards, you drive it yourself. When you are done, you come back, pull up to the terminal, get off, and the car goes and parks itself. So even automated valet parking, right? You go to a concert and there is always a long line, not just to get in, but at the parking lots. So a car that can drop you off, and then, of course, it's great if it can earn money, but if it can just do something as simple as go park itself.
Right.
And then if you tell it, look, my concert is over at this time, half an hour before that, it pulls out of the parking lot and come and picks you up. I think, just from a convenience perspective, there are a lot of use cases.
Okay, right. All right, well, final question. What kind of a timeline are we looking at for this vision of level 5?
Yeah. So my vision of level 5, where you could get in a driverless vehicle that could go anywhere in, let's say, the continental US, I think is probably not happening in my lifetime. But I think a level 5 that can operate in certain areas, whether it's a college campus, whether it's in certain urban areas where they have the infrastructure, I think that could happen in the next 10, 15 years. Or level 5 type of driving, which is only on highways. I think that is something that we'll definitely see in our lifetime. Right now, most of the systems, they'll give you a warning that you still may pay attention. So being able to get on a highway and actually take not just your hands off the wheel, but take your eyes off the road, I think that is the next big thing, right?
How far out? How far out is that?
I think we could probably get there in the next 10 years.
All right. Okay, well, I don't know if my car will even be around then, but maybe the next car will have something. Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Hassan from Telenav, and I hope that we can have more discussions as this technology develops and people become more aware of it and more curious. They're going to want to hear more details. So, thanks so much for your knowledge and sharing with us.
Thank you, Mike.